So today we're going to do the handover video on the Autotrail Delaware. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. So firstly, starting on the outside, we're going to go to the passenger side, and as you can see, you've got your fill up points which are just here. So this is for your diesel fill up point, and this is where you fill the tank up. Now whilst we're on the passenger side, if I open up passenger door, you'll notice that you have got your bonnet release catch, which is just here. Pull that to release the bonnet, and with the door open, you'll notice on this model you have got Remis cab blinds fitted. You've got them in all of your windows, at the front of the cab as well as your front window. All you need to do to operate these is simply pinch and then pull like so. And what I find is if you can lead the clip from the bottom, it stops it from getting caught. And it'll just therefore mean that it'll connect up and meet the magnetic strip in one swift motion. If you pull from the top like that, they can get stuck, so they are a little bit finicky. So just take your time with it and let it guide back in and clip in like so. And as a rule of thumb with a motorhome, if something feels like it's being forced, you're probably doing something wrong. So just take your time just to reevaluate what you're doing. Now coming over to the bonnet, underneath here, your bonnet release catch is just in line with your front badge. I'll lift the bonnet up for you now. Now with the bonnet open, there's not many things that you need to know underneath here, but the main things that you need to know is if you're ever going to jump start the vehicle. Now if that's the case, you've got your positive terminal onto here, and your negative terminal is just onto this nipple here. They're the main things that you need to know, obviously jump starting wise. But just to point out a couple more things, you can see that you've got your engine oil here with your dipstick, which is just below there. You've then got your engine coolant, your power steering fluid, your washer fluid, which is right at the back there, and then your brake disc fluid, which is just there. Now walking to the side of the vehicle, you can see this trim piece does remove, and this is a slide out drawer for storage. I'll just open that up for you now. And with that lifted out, you can see gains you access to the underside of the vehicle with little bits of storage. You can see that you've got 2 leisure batteries mounted to this vehicle. And this also reveals your location for your hookup point for your 230 volts. So when you're on the main site, just pop this up so your hookup cable can connect into here, and then the lead can lead out of here. Just obviously make sure that when you're traveling or when you're setting off to travel, that plug is taken out. Now directly below this, you'll see that you've got a grey pipe, and this is for your wastewater tank. This is your first drain down point in the vehicle. Now you have 3 main drain down points in the vehicle. You've got your wastewater, you've got your fresh water, which is again external, and then your boiler drain down point, which is on the inside of the vehicle. They're all very important because if you don't drain them down, you do run the risk of the water freezing in the tank. So what I always say is get into the habit of draining everything down, all the water, when you're not using the vehicle. Now the wastewater tank is the only thing that's external to the vehicle. So what I often advise customers is to leave this tank open and just pop a bucket underneath here, just so all the water will flow out. You don't need to worry so much about the fresh water and the boiler when you're using the vehicle, because obviously that will only freeze if you freeze, with it being on the inside of the vehicle. But obviously this external point, it is worth just noting that, you know, you just to put a bucket underneath. But as I mentioned, on site you'll have a big grid that you can drive over, and you turn this valve and that will empty the water. Now for all the drain down points, what we say is when you are emptying them, empty the majority of the water on site, and then as you're travelling home, you can leave all your drain down points open, because it just means that vibration of the road will get all that water out of the tank, and again will stop everything from freezing. So moving on, you've now got a little bit of storage just above that, which you can use, and you've then got an external shower point here as well, which is quite handy. And by the looks of it, it is a hot or cold system. So when you're on site, put your pump on, which I'll show you how to do later. Obviously ensure that you've got water in the tank, and then that will allow you to hose yourself off if you've been on the beach, or let's say you've got a muddy dog. Moving on, you can see that Next, you've got your fill up water point, and this is for your fresh water, and this is how you fill up everything. So get a food grade hose pipe, and all you need to do is remove this cap and then put the food grade hose pipe in there until it's overflowing. When it's overflowing, you know you've filled your tank. So it's as simple as that. Beneath, you can see that you've got a blue tap, and this leads us on to your second drain down point, which, as I mentioned, is your freshwater drain down point. Very similar. Again, all you need to do is turn this, and that will empty the freshwater tank. As I mentioned, when you're travelling off, just drain everything down, just to ensure you don't get any bits in the back. Going to the rear, you can see you've got your truma vent, and this is your heater in essence. So it does get quite, or your chimney rather. This does get quite hot, so don't hang anything on there. Just be careful of that. And at the back, you've got a little bit of storage as well. Now this vehicle hasn't been valeted yet, so just to look past any bits that don't look as tidy as they should. It is due a valet. Now this area, you can see that you've got your external shower point in there as well, along with a couple more things like your carpets and things. With your locks, just whilst we're on the topic, push them in and turn them, same with the bottom one, and then using your key, you can then press them in and turn the key and it'll lock the latch in. Moving to the back of the vehicle, you can see that you've got your tow bar here, along with a bike rack and your camera, which is up at the back as well, which will obviously just point down towards your bumper, so you know where your point is of your bumper when reversing. On the other side, you can see you've got another point, access point to your garage, and then on this area you can see that you've got a gas barbecue point, which via a bayonet fitting just connects into there, so you can have obviously barbecues on this side of the vehicle. Obviously you'll need to make sure that your gas is turned off at the bottle when using that, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Moving on, you can see you've now got your cassette toilet. This is where this is located. The cassette toilet's really important because before removing it, you always need to make sure that the blade on the toilet is closed, because if that blade is open, what you do run the risk of is snapping the cassette when you do go to remove it. So ensure that blade is closed, and I'll show you how to do that when we're on the inside of the vehicle. So with the cassette open, you can see it gains you access to the cassette. All you need to do is pull up on this little orange handle and slide out like so. So it's dead simple. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this out and just stick it on the floor so I can show you how to empty it. So as you can see, this is your cassette. When emptying is dead simple. All you've got to do is pull this out, this gooseneck. It's a little bit difficult with one hand, but as I promise, this will pull out. You then need to remove this cap, and then using the orange button on the back, click that in. That will release an internal vacuum, and that will empty the entire cassette. You can put a bit of water in here just to swill it out, and as I say, if you're putting any blue fluid in there, you'll just need to put that and measure it in the cap. We've got a little measurement on there. Once you've done that, put the cap back on. Obviously put the funnel neck back into this position, and then you're good to slide in. Now you'll notice that you have got another orange lever here, and that actually does turn. You want to leave that in this position. You should never need to touch that. That is what makes contact with the blade when you're opening and closing the cassette. So that should always stay in that position. If that is slightly off, it's going to get jammed. So just ensure that's always in that position. You shouldn't need to change that. Putting it back in, you just need to simply line it up and slide it in like so until this yellow orange handle here connects back into place. Moving on, you've got your fridge vents, which are here. Do bear in mind that this is where obviously the fridge pulls its air from to cool the fridge. So if it's a hot day, to try and make it run a little bit more efficiently, you might want to pull your awning out, which I'll talk through in a minute, just to keep this area under some shade. Before we come to the awning, next up you've got your gas locker. This will hold 2 gas bottles. When travelling, you need to always ensure that your gas is turned off at the bottle. You should never be travelling with gas on, for obvious reasons. When you're on site, you can then turn that gas bottle on. Now, in this vehicle, this has been fitted with an Lpg lock from the inside, and I'll show you how that opens the actual locker itself, because as you can see, you've no physical lock on the outside of the vehicle for safety reasons. and that, as I say, is on the outside, inside rather. Now before moving to the inside, you can see that finally you've got your awning along the top. Now the awning, the rule with it is if it was a day like today, you can see it's not that windy, you're fine to use it. How this works is you can see there's a little connection point at the top, and this is a Thule awning. All you need to do is make that meet the end of the awning, allow that to connect into the connector point, turn that until it locks in. So you turn it about halfway the awning pole and it locks into the awning. From there you can then wind it out. Wind it out to a point where you can reach it, and then you've got some legs in here which you can then pull out, dangle down, and then let that take the weight to the awning, and then you can simply walk it out. And it's just doing that but reversed when taking it in. But as I say, if it is a windy day, take it back in. If you do obviously, you know, get caught in the rain and the awning gets wet, you do need to at some point dry that out if it's a hot day, because it can of course lead to mould and obviously just decay and erode the awning canvas, so just bear that in mind. Rightio, so moving on to the inside. As we walk in, you can see that you've got your control panel, which is directly above the door. Just as you walk in as well, on the right hand side, you've got your button for your step and also a switch here for your lights. Now up at the top, you've two control panels. You've got one for your controls and your gauges, which will operate the lights, your pump, and also will tell you what battery what level your battery's at. And then on the other side, we've got your heating system, which I'll talk through separately. So firstly, if you go over to your control panel, click the power button, you can see your lights activate. You've then got your pump button here, which is in the middle, so you can click that and that'll turn the pump on. When using the pump, you of course need to make sure that you've got water in the system. If you don't, you'll burn out the pump. So ensure that the vehicle has got water in the system. Once you've done that, click your pump, and then you can go to your taps, including your shower, and turn them on, then turn them to hot. What that'll do is it'll pull water from the freshwater tank into the boiler and then out of the tap. When it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Then flick it over to cooled and do the exact same. It'll pull the water through and then dump it out of the tap. And once it's running steadily, you have primed your system. Do that for all your taps, and the reason I tell you to do it on your hot water first is that'll pull water through to your boiler, which holds about 10 litres, and then when you've turned your heating on, that'll then give it chance to start heating that water up. Do it in that order, because then by the time you've put your heating on and you know you've got sorted on the campsite, you'll have hot water, because of course it's not instant hot water. It will take at least 30 to 40 minutes to heat up, so just bear that in mind. Now coming back over to the control panel, the next light, or the next switch rather, is your interior lights here, as you can see. So that turns them on and off instead of going around and doing the individual switches. You've then below got your door light, as you can see, which is just here, so that's on the outside of the vehicle. And then with this, you've got a different amount of brightness that you can use on your lights. So if you click this, you can have it at, as you can see, full brightness, or you can turn them completely off. That's just for really your strip lights on the side. Next, you've got your leisure battery levels. So at the moment you've got this screen here, and this will tell you exactly everything that is pulling in the vehicle. So you've got your battery voltage here, and you can also see your solar ampage as well. At the moment it's a bit of a miserable day, so we're not going to be pulling that much in to the vehicle. But if you click this button, you can see that it tells you your leisure battery level along with your capacity, and then as I say, it'll tell you your solar ampage and your battery ampage as well. And you can flick it back over, and then it will show you your vehicle battery as well. It needs a bit of a run, this, as you can see, but it just displays all your battery levels there, which is dead easy and dead handy. You can flick through this, through these arrows as well. This really takes you into your settings, so you can change bits like your times and stuff, should you want to. But the main thing that you need to know is on this side of the panel. You've then got a tank heater on this, and that'll be for your wastewater tank. But as I mentioned outside, I personally wouldn't use the the water heater or the heated tank for the wastewater, to be perfectly honest. The reason for that is, although it heats the tank, it won't heat the neck of the pipe which dumps the water. So if you leave that open, it'll ensure that way nothing is frozen in the tank. Now coming over to your Truma heating system, which is just over here. I'll talk you through this now. So firstly, on this side, you've got your fuel. So it's dead simple, dead easy. This is how you want to fuel the vehicle, or the vehicle's heating, that is. So at the top, you can see you've got two little squiggles. That indicates that you can fuel the vehicle off 2 kilowatt electric if you was to flick it to that point. The one squiggle indicates that you can run it off 1 kilowatt electric. The flame symbol indicates that you can run it off purely gas. The one squiggle with the gas flame indicates that you can run it off gas and 1 kilowatt electric. And finally, you probably guessed it, your two squiggles with your gas will indicate that you can run it off gas and 2 kilowatt electric. Now, if you're wild camping, you'll of course purely have it on gas. And if you're on site, what I always tell customers to do, if you've got gas bottles in the vehicle, is flick it over to a mixture of gas and 2 kilowatt electric to get it up to temperature, and then flick it purely on 2 kilowatt electric, because that will get it up to temperature the quickest. In the middle, you have got a little bit of light. That's just for your mood lighting along the top. And on the far side, again for your heating, this is what you want to heat. So this is either you want to heat your water or you want to heat the vehicle itself. Up at the top, you've got 60 and you've got 40. It's quite difficult to see on the camera, as you can see. But 60 is, in essence, you can flick that on when you're, washing your pots and pans and things. And 40 degrees, you can flick that on when you're having a shower. And that's purely for your hot water. So that's purely heating that water, that. In the middle on this O button, that means that it's turned off. You can see nothing's working. The final, the next little icon, the gas flame, that is for the space heater. So that's if you wanted to heat the vehicle, but not the water. And then finally, which 9 times out of 10 you'll want to do, you'll want to heat the water and you'll want to heat the vehicle itself. And that's just been done on this final one here. Now, you do have a little dial on here as well, as you can see, and that will increase and decrease the power and intensity of what you're using as well. So now, moving on from the control panel and into your lounge, you can see you've got a bench seat lounge here. At this point, your table connects into the side. Now, you do need to be careful to always remember to loosen that off before swiveling it round, because that's how it can break and snap off. And you'll notice you've got an LPG handle here. That's for the gas locker, and that's what opens the gas locker, as I mentioned, on the outside. So it's just behind the passenger seat at the front. You've got storage all along, so you have a real good bit of storage. And on your windows, you've got a pull-up blackout blind and also a fly screen, which will just keep the bugs out as well. Now, as you'll probably want to know how to make this bed up. It's dead easy and dead simple if you've ever got guests around. All you need to do is pull this here outwards and do the same with this, and they simply meet in the middle. And as you can see, that cushion's now starting to fall back. That will slot into place. I'll just quickly do that for you now and show you how that makes up. And now you can see the front bed is made up and it's ready to use. Obviously, you'll need to remove this. You are using this front section. As you can see, it makes for a decent sized bed. Now, before moving on from the lounge, you can see I've just dismantled this here. You can see you have got a little bit of storage underneath here, as you can see, for bits and bobs as well. I've just taken that table out as well, so you can see where that clips into. You have also got a socket here, which I forgot to mention, which is a 230 volt socket. So moving on from the lounge, just before that, you have got a bit more storage in there as well. But moving into the kitchen, as we've discussed about priming your system, you're sorted with that. You've got your oven and grill here with your hob up at the top. So this is an electric plate, which is handy. And you can see you've got your microwave just directly above that. Please bear in mind that your microwave, it is 230 volt only, so it will only work off the 230 volt when you're hooked up on site. That's the same thing about your sockets as well. and then you can see your oven and grill is just below that. Opposite the kitchen is your fridge. You've got your freezer up at the top and then your fridge, which is just below. Now, the fridge does a really good job, and the freezer, at maintaining temperature, but not the best of jobs at getting it down to temperature. So just bear that in mind. If you're putting cool things in the fridge, if you want cool things to be in the fridge, rather, put cool things in. And if you want frozen things to be in the freezer, just put frozen things in, just to maintain that temperature. So, opening the fridge up, you can see you've got your Dometic panel. It's a Dometic fridge, this. It's dead easy and dead simple to operate. You've got your on button here. Next to that, you've got a little plug, which is a 230 volt socket, or 230 volt mains, and these are your fuels basically. So when you're on site, you'll click it off, you'll work it off this this first switch here. If you're wild camping and you want the fridge to run off gas, you'll run it off this little flame symbol here. And then when you're traveling, you'll run it off this little battery icon here, which will run it off your leisure battery in your 12 volt system. Now you'll notice you have got an A button here, which will automatically assign whichever fuel you've got to the vehicle, so you're probably better off just clicking that. Now, just before I move on from the fuels, a lot of people think that when they're wild camping, they can run the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery. That is not the case. If that was the case, it would simply just deplete the battery of all of its power. You can only run the leisure battery, the fridge off the leisure battery when you're travelling, because you've got a built-in alternator with this vehicle, which will send power straight to the leisure battery, which can obviously power the fridge. So when you're stationary and you're wild camping, it has to be gas. You've then got an option for venting, and then you can change the temperature of the fridge. This little icon on the side here, don't worry about that. That's just if you wanted to reset the fridge as well. So moving on, you've got a bit more storage in here as well. Just directly above, you can see this vehicle's fitted with the aircon system as well, should you ever want to use that. You've got your fan speed on this side, whether you want it obviously hot or cold, and then the same thing up here. You can turn that to on or off. They're relatively simple. Moving on to your bedroom area and to the bathroom. As I mentioned, this door pulls across to divide the space, and we've spoken about priming the system for the shower and obviously your sink. The main thing that you need to know is if you're ever using the toilet, and as I mentioned outside, you need to always make sure that the blade on the toilet is open when in use and closed when not in use. The blade that I keep making reference to is this piece of silver plastic here. Push it away from you, that opens the blade. Pull it towards you, that closes the blade. So when in use, push that open so all the waste can drop into the cassette, and then click your blue button on the top there, and that will flush the system. Once you've done that, pull it towards you, and then you're good to go. Now, you pull it towards you for two reasons. Obviously, the main reason is to stop odours from escaping, but two, it will it will get you into the habit of having that closed, so when you come to remove the cassette, you don't end up breaking it. As I mentioned up here, the blue little button here activates your flush, and you do have an indicator here. You'll get a red light when that needs to, of course, be emptied. It's worth mentioning you need your pump on for the flush to obviously operate as well. So finally, we've got your bedroom area. So you've got storage either side. There's actually a telly in here as well. Underneath the bed, there's quite a bit of storage, which you've seen on the outside, but to access that, you can lift the bed up like so, and that will gain you access to this area here. Now, underneath the bed, you can see you've got your boiler, which is in the far corner there, which looks really complicated, and you can see you've got elements of your pump here. The only thing that you need to know underneath here is your final drain down point, which is your boiler drain down point, and all that is that little yellow toggle. At the moment it's closed. If I flick that up, you might be able to hear that. That is open, and that's draining the boiler tank. So in the up position, it's open, down, it's closed. So when not in use, you always need to make sure that that's up, even more so than for the boiler. So ensure that that's up when not in use, but when you are using it, flick that down so you can fill up the tank. If you've not used the vehicle in a while and it's been in hibernation mode, you may forget about this and you'll have water draining out the van. It'll probably be because you've forgot to drain that. Or to close that rather. That's really all you need to know underneath here, but you can see you've got two red taps on the other side there. You might get them throughout the vehicle as well. They're just red isolation taps. You just leave them as they are. They isolate certain areas of the van, which is really just for us and the technicians to use. Now, before we conclude today's handover video, I've just come back into the lounge, and under in one of your storage areas, you can see that you've got your entertainment system. You've got your motorhome Wi-Fi that has been fitted, which is just here. You just need a SIM for that to activate, and that will give you Wi-Fi in the vehicle. And then your aerial. To operate the aerial, it's dead simple. You need to unscrew this white lever here, push the pole up, and then tighten that into position. You do have an arm on the end of the aerial as well to alter the head of the aerial and angle it to give you better reception and signal. Now, this little Vision Plus box here, this is what turns on and off the aerial. This will only come on, obviously, if you've got your control panel on. At the moment, it's on because you've got a green light, and that indicates good signal. If I flick that switch, you can see that turns off. So make sure that that's on for your aerial to operate. And it will change colour depending on how good the signal is. So, finally, you've got your Sergeant unit. Your Sergeant unit houses your fuses, and it also houses your RCD breaker for your trip box. So if the vehicle ever trips, just come to here. That's all you really need to know with this. You can obviously deactivate and activate areas of the vehicle and isolate points, but realistically you don't need to. You can do everything on that panel as I've shown you. It's really just for technicians, this, when working on your vehicle. You'll notice you've got this button here that's called System Shutdown. You don't, again, I wouldn't advise clicking that. That just shuts down the entire system when you're not using it. So say if you're not using it for a good 6 months, you can click that. But again, I probably wouldn't advise using that. So that concludes the handover video on the Autotrail Delaware. I hope you enjoyed.